Hey, what's going on? It's me, Jay. I'm here back again to talk more about this historic decision to overturn uh, Roe versus Wade, which I consider to be a grave tragedy and a grave misfortune of rights against women. Obviously, while me myself am not personally invested in this as a woman, I feel like this whole situation is taking away, hey Lisa, from women's rights and women's liberty. I mean, it is a woman essentially, not essentially, it is a woman that becomes pregnant. It is a woman that has to carry the child, you know, for a 9 month gestation period. So it ultimately should be a woman's right to choose whether or not she wants to stay pregnant or remain pregnant or not. People say, oh, well, what about personal responsibility and all that? That's what they bring up. I'm like, oh, well, listen, tell me, again, he without sin cast the first stone. Tell me that if the roles were reversed and men had to be accountable for every sexual misconduct that they've ever done in life, that they wouldn't want something like this, a quick out, a quick escape, and a quick getaway out of it. Hell, y'all be out here ducking child support like a motherfucker, so don't tell me anything about being personally responsible for a child that you bring into this world. Because if you want to point to um, rising abortion rates as an example of women's sexual promiscuity and irresponsibility, then you got to point to your own. You know what I'm saying? Men play a role in it too, but ultimately, men don't get the right to make that final decision because they're not the ones having to carry the baby. The ones having to carry the baby is the women's folk. You know, so I mean, the fact that a Supreme Court body of a government, a legislative body, I mean, not legislative, a judicial body of a government is allowed to tell a person what they can and cannot do with their own body is disgusting. You know what I mean? Whether or not you agree with it or not, you consider it a moral issue, fine. But that option should always be there on a legal end. Because, again, if a person don't have a right to choose with their own what they want to do with their own body, then we don't have freedom. And our society is built on personal freedom. You know, yes, personal responsibility as well, but let's be honest, people fuck up, people make mistakes. And whether or not um, better for society that she not go through fully with that mistake in an unwanted child in an unwanted situation, then she fully go through with the child in an unwanted situation, and then the society will have to bear the brunt of her quote unquote mistake or her quote unquote sexual misconduct. And add this to the fact as well. What if a woman gets raped? What if she is a product of incest, as you know often occurs? And it wasn't even her fault. She wasn't even engaging in sexual misconduct, and something like this happened to her. Then what? If the laws in her state indicate that she can't get an abortion, she would have to then travel to a different state in order to get that abortion. And of course, she won't, sometimes, depending on her economic or socioeconomic level, she won't just be mildly inconvenienced. She will have to bear that society. And are the people that are defending the pro-life position, are they ready to implement laws to protect children after birth, after the birth, unwanted children after the birth, or unintended children after the birth, unplanned children? No, they want to cut every single social program that exists to protect children and protect the poor and protect the disadvantaged. Not necessarily that I think that government should take care of you from cradle to the grave, but okay, fine. You don't want the responsibility to take care of it. So if you are the government, then you don't have the right to tell a woman what she can and can't do. You can't say, oh, she has to have it, and then after it's born, refuse to take care of it, because in that instance, the government becomes a deadbeat dad. Okay, the moral implications about life. When does life begin? Does life begin at conception? Does life begin this and that? I have another video dictating that, but I'm just talking about the societal implications. They think that by doing this, that this will curb sexual promiscuity, because the next step after this, right? Lisa is absolutely right. I was just going to bring that up. Thank you, Lisa. In the 1950s, 60s, and before Roe v. Wade, abortion still happening. Because as we know with guns, and this is the argument that 2A advocates, not 2K advocates, excuse me, 2A advocates, Second Amendment advocates always have when it comes to guns, and this has been my stance too when it's come to guns, even in light of the current crisis, is that criminals and people, not necessarily criminals. I'm not criminalizing women that want to get abortions, but as we see with guns and drugs, people will do whatever they want to do regardless of what the law says. But the only thing is that when it's illegal, they tend to do it in an unsafe, uncontrolled environment. So what Lisa is saying is that if women want to get abortions, they're going to get abortions anyway, whether it's legal or illegal. But they're going to do it in a dangerous way that will endanger their lives and their futures if they ever do want to go through with it and have kids. You know what I mean? Because that's what was happening. Watch the movie, and Lisa and I went to see this in the theaters years ago, like in 2010, 2011, the Tyler Perry movie, For Color Girls. Tessa Thompson's character has that scary back alley illegal abortion when Macy Gray is looking like ugly and scary and shit, giving Tessa Thompson uh, the abortion, and what happens to Tessa Thompson? After that, she's unable to have children after that. Tessa Thompson's character in that movie. You know what I mean? So that uh, that was really going down, guys, before Roe v. Wade. Because again, just because something is illegal doesn't necessarily mean that people will stop doing it. The same thing with guns. Just because if we make guns illegal throughout every single state, people will still get them, and people that want to do harm will still do it. We've battled with this with drugs for centuries, for years, for decades, and centuries even. Society makes drugs illegal. The the prevalence of drug use goes up. Just making something illegal doesn't make it go away. In fact, it makes it more dangerous because the people that are going to want to access it now have to access it through an underground rather than something safe and something that is controlled. So, do you really want that with abortions? If you think overturning Roe v. Wade is going to make abortions go away and that all of a sudden women are just going to pop out with babies they don't want, and again, if they do that, um, is the society ready to take on the responsibility to take care of unwanted children? I don't think so. Not with the Republicans who want to cut off every single social program ever in existence that takes care of the poor and the disadvantaged. And it's mostly the poor and the disadvantaged that are going to suffer from this because the rich assholes like Trump and Bloomberg and all these politicians and all these one percenters, they're still going to get abortions. They don't really care. Even the Republicans that are so-called pro-life, they get abortions. Their mistresses and stuff get abortions on the low. See, y'all that are the plebeians, y'all think that they play by the same rules you do. But obviously, we saw with COVID that they don't. Politicians and upper class society, the uh, the upper class, the rich, as they say, they don't play by your rules. They make one set of rules for them, and they make another set of rules for you. So it's like in A Handmaid's Tale. In A Handmaid's Tale, when the sons of Jacob took over, they made all these rules for the poor people, all these rules for the plebeians, all these rules for the lower classes. But behind closed doors in the smoke filled rooms, they were still going to parties. They were still fucking bitches, having sex with women. They were still doing the liberal, libertine lifestyle that they told you not to do. They were being hypocrites, and that was just like, again, like with COVID. Every politician was telling you to wear a mask, for you to get vaccinated, for you to do this, for you to do that. But meanwhile, they weren't doing it. They were operating with a different set of laws. So that's just like this. They go up there, the Republican politicians, and they tell you, oh, don't get an abortion. We're pro-life. We're pro-life. We're this, we're that, right? And then behind closed doors, they themselves are getting the women that they're sleeping around with outside of marriage and having affairs with are getting abortions to cover up their illicit affairs. So y'all think that this is going to make abortion go away? Yeah. Well, and again, Clarence Thomas, he's a perfect example of a hypocrite. Lisa saying Clarence Thomas argued in a concurring opinion released on Friday that the rulings codifying rights to contraception, access, and same-sex marriage should be overturned as well. Of course, because there is something in the legal world called precedent, and legal rulings are decided based on past legal rulings. So every landmark decision rests on the legal foundation of another landmark decision. And call me crazy. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm not a genius, right? I don't really know about law. I never really studied law, and I never really studied no biology. As Sam Cooke said, I don't know about biology or any of that. I don't know about history. I don't know about any of that shit. But what I do know is human nature. And what I do know is that when governments start taking away liberties from one group, they'll come for the next group. So don't think, oh, I'm a man, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to take anything away from me. What can they take away from me? I'm good. I'm a man. This only affects women. This only affects dots. You know what I mean? Women out there with multiple boyfriends having promiscuous sex, right? But don't think that, because maybe the individual right or the self-autonomous right that you enjoy will now be taken away from you. Maybe you think, oh, this doesn't affect me because I'm gay. You know what I mean? This doesn't affect me because I'm a lesbian. You know what I mean? This doesn't affect me because I don't have any kids. But what about whatever right you enjoy? Whatever right you enjoy will soon be taken away from you. Maybe segregation will be overturned. Maybe interracial marriage will be overturned. So the precedent that this sets is a very, very dangerous precedent. So y'all think y'all won. Y'all think this is a victory, but really this is a loss even for the pro-lifers. Because y'all ain't gonna be able to, like, men that are like controlling and stuff, and they want to control women, and they feel like women should be back in the 50s and the 40s, barefoot, having tons of babies. Do you really think that this is gonna make a difference? Do you really think that they ain't gonna still try to live the lifestyle that they've been living? You really think this is gonna destroy hookup culture? This ain't gonna destroy nothing. It's only gonna go underground, fool. If you think it's gonna destroy shit, you don't know human history. You don't know how human behavior is. When they outlawed prohibition, you think that made alcohol go away? When they outlawed weed, you think that made marijuana go away? And plus, if she wasn't choosing your ass anyway, she ain't gonna choose your ass now. You know what I mean? Like, you think, oh, I'm gonna have it, and then this is bad for y'all. Let me tell you, because now she can't get an abortion, so now she gotta have the kid. So now she dragging your ass to child support. So if you don't like to pay the child support, you better support, uh, the overturn of this overturn. You know, if if you think child support, like a lot of people in the manosphere and the men's rights activists think that child support is unfair and the courts are unfair to men, and in some cases they're right, especially when it comes to visitations and stuff like that. But if you think this whole child support shit is unfair, shit, wait till if this law goes nationwide. Wait till that happens. When it goes nationwide, then all them all the men who just wanted to hook up with girls and didn't want to have kids with her, or just wanted to leave her with tons of kids, and you just want to cut out, y'all gonna be feeling the brunt of it too. Because no longer can you tell her, oh well, babe, just go to the abortion clinic and take care of it. You can't tell her that no more, because remember, you supported the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Either that or you were ambivalent towards it. You know what I mean? You were like, oh, it don't matter to me. It don't affect me. It don't concern me. I don't have no woman. Fuck what these bitches talking about. Yeah, but now it affects you, bro, because now you now have to pay up. You know what I mean? For a child with a woman you probably didn't even want to be with, for the rest of your life. And you know what used to happen? Besides those back alley abortions that Lisa and I were talking about earlier, you know what also used to happen in the 50s and 60s when, like, say you hooked up with a girl, right, and you managed somehow to convince to have sex and you had sex unprotected. Um, the families used to force the young man, basically a boy, 16, 17, probably 18, to get married to the girl. And he would be in a marriage and she would be in a marriage with somebody they didn't even really love like that, and they was just forced to do that. You know what I'm saying? You want to go back to that? You know what I'm saying? You want to go retrograde back to that? I'm sure men don't even want that. You know what I'm saying? So you don't think of the domino effect that this is having. It's not just a situation. Oh, I'm gonna control all these thoughts. You know what I mean? This will show them. This will show them not to be so promiscuous and not to go out there having sex with mad dudes and then no accountability. And she has to be more sexually responsible, because if she don't, she can't get pregnant and have an abortion. No, it's gonna affect you too, because it ain't like you out there being sexually responsible neither. You know what I mean? You don't see it how it's gonna affect you in the long run, but it is, and it's even gonna affect y'all that have kids and y'all have nuclear families, and you're supposedly Christian and you're supposedly the good people, and you don't have you exercise restraint and you exercise sexual discipline. It's gonna affect y'all as well, because now there are going to be extra people born. So if there's extra people born, you're going to have to raise the taxes. Some of those people might be disabled, and some of those people might need extra help and extra financial aid throughout the rest of their life. So If you think the cost of living is high now, wait till those unwanted human beings and those undesired human beings that weren't even planned for and accounted for are born. Wait till that happens. So it's going to affect you too. So think, guys, this is terrible. I cannot really see, in my opinion, the what good can come of this. Not to mention the laws being enacted in certain states and not being enacted in other states. So you know, you're further drifting the country apart. People complain about, disunity in the country, the polarization of America, the reds and the blue states becoming, um, you know, ever increasingly disunited. Study the American Civil War and what exactly caused the American Civil War. Yes, it was the issue of slavery, but what about slavery? It was that some states wanted slavery and other states did not, and they were promoting it as an issue of states' rights, an issue of federalism, and it caused increasing disunity in the country. As Abraham Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Because if a girl is living in one state where abortion is illegal, she would have to go to a completely other state where abortion is legal to get what she wants done. And it's not like commuting to different states or and getting certain services in other states is all that easy. There's such a thing as state IDs, or such a thing as state documents. I mean, this is a disaster. This is a disaster all the way around. Whether you're talking about human rights, women's rights, rights of individuals, um, even just the logistics of it, the mechanics of it, the everyday, how they're going to make this run, how they're going to enforce it, how they're going to enforce something that is legal in certain states and illegal in other states, something this dramatic, this wide. It's just like when the liberals argue that about gun control. Okay, we'll have gun control in our state, but we won't have it in another state. Well, what's he gonna do? Just smuggle guns from one state to another state, like the shooter in Buffalo did with guns from Pennsylvania. Come on, guys. you know, think. But they don't. The politicians don't care, man. Um, and another thing, I take personal responsibility for this in a way too, because we all take presidential elections very lightly, and we don't realize that the president who approves the Supreme Court justice, and the Supreme Court justices that eventually, you know, either make these laws or overturn them. And we all say, "Oh, the president ain't doing shit." Doesn't really matter if it's Biden or if it's Trump, if it's Obama, you know. But we don't look at those Supreme Court picks, and for those of us that are against Roe v. Wade and say we voted for Trump back in 2016, this is what we get. This is the ramifications of it. This is a lesson learned, and I'm speaking from experience because I was one of them. You know, I took it as a joke. I thought it was never possible that Roe v. Wade could be overturned. You had asked me 2 years ago, what could Roe v. Wade be overturned? I would have said, hell no, that's not possible. That's just something. That is just something that Republican politicians use to get elected. They use that as a banner to get elected, but that ain't never gonna happen. You know what I mean? But the unthinkable has happened now. What we thought could never happen has happened now. And I'm sure, you know, I got a lot of religious friends, religious family members. And a lot of my religious friends and my religious family members, men and women, are very happy about this, of course. You know what I'm saying? Because, finally America is doing something that they agree with, that is there, you know, along with their religious rights. But think about some of the other things that they believe in. They don't believe in contraception. We know that. Ain't nowhere in the Bible or in the Quran where there's contraception. There ain't nowhere in the Bible or the Quran where there's promiscuous sex. So you think they're gonna stop there? You think they're gonna stop just overturning abortion? No, I guarantee you, whatever you like, the religious people that are supporting Roe v. Wade, they don't like that either. They're gonna use the government to overturn that too. So if you like watching porn, you better say goodbye to watching porn, right? If you like hooking up with a girl on Tinder, you better say goodbye to hooking up with a girl on Tinder. If you like smoking weed, you better say goodbye to that. If you're gay, you better say goodbye to it because they ain't gonna stop there. This is a religious crusade, my boy. This is this is their ultimate objective, their modus operandi. So don't be all rah rah cheering them on now, because next they'll come for your whiskey, they'll come for your Playboy, and they'll come for your Tinder account. Peace. Yeah, Lisa, that is something I brought up in my old Roe v. Wade video. Um, Listen, the whole thing, the whole thing about eugenics and having a disability, and people always use the. I listen. I hate when people use the only two historical examples that they know, the Holocaust and slavery, to justify every argument. Yeah, you just used it now, so I guess I'm a hypocrite, but whatever, right? But people will say, well, you know that Hitler agreed with abortion. Hitler was pro-abortion, and he would have agreed with Roe v. Wade because he believed in the superior man, the Übermensch, as it were in German. He discriminated against disabled people like yourself, and people that are for abortions don't deem disabled people worthy of life, right? And a lot of people say, well, if I didn't know my kid was going to be having cerebral palsy or having spinal bifida or having any other disability, I'd have aborted him. That's what Sarah Palin said with regards to her son. But listen, um, again, if you want to have a kid with a disability, know that it comes with certain responsibilities and certain um, commitments that you're going to have for the rest of your life. And yes, I'm happy to be alive, and I don't wish that my mom aborted me, right? And I don't wish, if that mother chooses to have a child with a disability, that she aborts the child either, because I don't consider human beings to be inferior. But what I don't want, again, I don't want the government to step in and tell a woman that she should have a child with a disability even if she doesn't want to, or she should have any child if she doesn't want to. This is a government issue. This is a freedom issue, personal choice. You know what I mean? If she feels like she cannot handle the baby with a disability, better for her to have the abortion than to have the baby and not be able to handle it, and then put the burden on the society and put the burden inevitably on a family member, or put undue stress on the future child, because what's she going to be thinking in her mind? All along, she didn't want to have this kid. All along, she wished that she'd have been able legally to get the abortion and get rid of this kid, because she knew the medical responsibility, the medical expenses, and the physical commitment was way too much. She didn't. It wasn't no sexual irresponsibility. She wanted to have a kid, but she just didn't want to have a kid that was disabled. Because she didn't want to have that kind of commitment in her life. You know what I mean? But because of the assholes in the government, she wasn't able to make that choice. You know what I mean? Your mothers, if you're a person with a disability right now and you're alive, your mothers had that choice. But future generations may not have that choice, and it may result in individuals with disabilities being neglected by society, being thrown away by society. Places like the New York Foundling being filled up for life because, uh, you know, mothers didn't want to have, the unintended consequences of mothers not wanting children with disabilities. Let's just be honest. It is a lifelong commitment, depending on the severity of your child's disability. Having a child with a disability, it is not something easy. It is not something to take lightly. It is something that you should consider, um, at great length, and you should have the option to terminate your pregnancy or not terminate your pregnancy if you were to find out that a child is disabled. You know what I mean? It sounds fucked up. Yes. Does it sound like eugenics? No, I don't think it sounds like eugenics because nobody is saying that the person is inferior. Nobody is saying that the person is less worth, has less worth. They're saying that the mother is not ready for that kind of commitment and responsibility. And don't front unless you have a disabled child and unless that disabled child is of the same level of severity as another woman that chose not to have a child with a disability, don't front like, oh, well, it ain't nothing. Not look at me taking care of my son or my daughter with a disability. But they're not you. They're probably not built like you. Remember, every single situation is different. Every single situation is unique. So it's easy for us to sit up there in our high horses and sit up there and say and pontificate and be like, oh, people should do this, people should do that. You know what I mean? They have a child with a disability. Okay, yeah, Lisa, I know that. I know that. But okay, that was back then. Okay, but I'm saying with the consequences of this law, I didn't. The founding was something that popped into my mind. You know, just as a matter of speaking. I didn't mean specifically the foundling. No disrespect. Uh, there's a certain group of individuals that I know that were in the foundling that I'm close with. Mostly every single one of them. I didn't mean to imply that their mothers abandoned them or anything, or that their mothers were bad mothers. What I'm saying is, in the future, with this law being passed the way it is, in the future, many mothers will abandon their children because they're not ready for that. Everybody is not built for the same struggle. Everybody ain't a soldier. Everybody ain't a warrior. You know what I mean? Everybody ain't intended to be a mother, and especially everybody ain't intended to be a mother with a child with a disability. It's a tremendous responsibility. It's a tremendous um, blessing, in a sense, because it gives you a level of humility, and a level of perspective um, on the abundance of God's blessings. Uh, when you have a child with a disability, you begin to take less stuff for granted, or if you are a person with a disability yourself. But not everybody is meant for that. It's just like euthanasia. Euthanasia, also, I agree with that. Euthanasia should be a thing. If people become automatically, you know, irrevocably sick, right? If they become irrevocably sick, and whatever they have wrong with them uh, cannot be repaired, like they become like Terry Scheivel, right? A vegetable. I believe, in my opinion, that the person, despite the Hippocratic oath, that the person should be allowed to say if they want to live or not. You know what I mean? That should be the person's right. We don't have the right as a society to impose the responsibility of life on another individual, even outside the womb. That's my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, really, it's sad that a person wants to reach that level and commit suicide, but if they wanted to do that, and if they felt like they were too sick to survive, either mentally or physically in any kind of capacity, they should reserve that right. That should not be for the government to decide. I mean, really, you know. So I didn't mean to imply, Lisa, that the founding everybody was abandoned, but I'm saying that places like that will become filled up if a law like this were to pass. You know, and it's not enough families willing to take in orphans. I wish there were, but many families are not willing to do that. Props to all my friends and family, my friends and my peoples, you know what I mean, that are adopted parents and have taken in children whose mothers were either unable or unwilling to take care of them and they still gave them life. So adoption is always an option, but unfortunately there are not many families that promote adoption because, as Lisa informed me the other day, um, adoption is a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy. So, unless the system intends to make adoption easier with the overturn of Roe v. Wade, they should be doing it. You know, because um, nobody wants to adopt them. You know, the mothers can't terminate the pregnancy. Now you have like third world countries, kids living in the streets. You know what I mean? So to answer your question, Lisa, I don't feel no type of way about it with a disability. I'm thankful my mother didn't have an abortion with me. I'm thankful that every disabled person I've known and encountered and I love and cherish, including Lisa herself, their mothers didn't have abortions with them. But if our mothers had chose that, that would have been the choice of our mothers. You know, whether or not we were disabled or not. That'd have been our mother's choice, and that should be our mother's choice. That should not be the choice of the government. That should not be the choice of the Supreme Court, somebody that doesn't even know them. That should not be the choice of the opposite sex. Come on. The day a man could carry a baby and give birth to a baby in a 9 month gestation period should be the day when that individual, that man, should be on that Supreme Court deciding whether or not a woman can carry a baby. If he can never do that, then he shouldn't even think to tell a woman she shouldn't. What did Tupac say? Since a man can't make one, he has no right to tell a woman when and where to create one. That's it, plain and simple. Man, rest in peace to Tupac Shakur because he was a prophet of modern times. Peace. I love you guys. And today was a tremendous L. But remember, the fight is never over. Evil is never truly vanquished from this world, and neither is good. As long as good men exist, good will always exist in this world. So don't act all defeated. Don't act all butthurt. Which is nasty. What do you mean? So, what's nasty? Don't act all defeated. Right, exactly. Old men like Clarence Thomas, perverts like Clarence Thomas. We all remember his court case with Anita Hill back in the early 90s. We all remember that shit. Porn references, Long John Silver, pubic hair in the Coke can. We all remember it, bro. We haven't forgotten. And if we weren't even there at that time, there's historical archives exist for a reason. You know what I mean? So, uh, keep your head up, guys. The fight is never over. We can still fight this. Um, Truth always conquers over falsehood. Good always conquers over evil. Even though there are some setbacks, it's like the rebels in Empire Strikes Back. You know, uh, they were set back for a while. You know, injustice prevailed, but in the end, justice prevailed. And I'm not saying that life is like a movie, but we know that this is not the end. Don't be dismayed. Don't be depressed. Don't don't back down. Keep fighting. Keep keeping up the good fight, and keep keeping your ear to the streets, my friend, because uh, we want to get a president that has some bone, has some backbone to fight these assholes and keep women's sovereignty and women's liberty, women's personal sovereignty and women's personal liberty um, abreast in this country. You know what I mean? And in this society as a whole, because we've seen what happens to societies where women once had rights, women once had liberties, and those liberties go away. Liberties, freedoms, they're fragile, just like that. They're fragile, just like that. They go away. Look at Afghanistan in the 70s. Women were wearing miniskirts. Women were dating freely. Women were living a westernized freedom, a westernized free life. And then all of a sudden the Soviet Union comes in, and then after the Soviet Union, the Taliban comes in. Look at Iran before the 1979 revolution. Just like that, the freedoms that you take for granted, you can lose. So never give up fighting and never think that it can't happen here and it can't happen now. When you study history, you realize that life is an endless cycle of ups and downs. And no matter how advanced a society is, no matter how free a society is, no matter how enlightened a society is, we are one step away from tyranny. We are one step away from severe patriarchy, real patriarchy, not the kind of patriarchy that these fake Tumblr feminists complain about, microaggressions and other bullshit. I'm talking about real patriarchy, the real shit, like when men force you to have kids you don't want. That kind of real shit, not no microaggression shit or whatever. No, you know, that they were talking about in 2015, 2016 that turned so many people off that they voted a complete other side to the detriment of their own self. Stupidly, yeah, but it was the SJW feminist that kind of that made people want to do that. You know what I mean? Because we were all sitting here like, look at women's rights issues in Afghanistan, look at women's rights issues in Saudi Arabia, look at women's rights issues in Iran, and you're sitting there complaining about a so-called wage gap, or microaggressions, and you don't even have any real, um, you don't even have any real problems with a real patriarchy. But now that you've wished it into existence, now that you've complained about it so much, unfortunately now a real patriarchy does exist. A real patriarchy is about to form. And the kind of patriarchy that is like in The Handmaid's Tale, like in Afghanistan, like in Iraq, like in Syria, and y'all ain't gonna like it. Y'all ain't gonna like it for women. Y'all ain't gonna like it for men. Y'all ain't gonna like it for freedom-loving people as a whole. So never take your freedoms for granted. Never turn off. Never get too comfortable. Always remember that we're always fighting. We're always combating the forces of injustice and the forces of tyranny. Never take a day off. Peace, Love you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to see when my next video is coming out. Lisa, thank you for contributing. And as a girl dad, women, many girl dad, well, girl dad multiple times over, women will triumph in this. And advocates and allies of women that will triumph in this. I believe that. This is not the end. This is not the definitive battle. We may be down, but we're not out. We got another round coming, bro. This is like the first fight in the Rocky movies. The Rocky of social justice. Watch him come back, and at round 3, he's gonna defeat Apollo Creed, or he's gonna defeat Dolph Lundgren, or he's gonna defeat Tommy Morrison. It's gonna happen. We're down, but we're not out. We lost the battle, but we ain't gonna lose the war.